Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins' secret meeting with Triple H after Vision betrayal on WWE Raw. This is absolutely unacceptable. Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins just had a secret backstage meeting with Triple H that WWE tried to hide from the cameras, and what I'm about to reveal is going to make your blood boil because it exposes the biggest conspiracy in WWE right now. After the Vision's devastating betrayal on Raw that left Seth Rollins looking like a fool and the Bloodline in complete chaos, the game called an emergency meeting with the two former Shield brothers that nobody was supposed to know about, but I've got sources, I've got details, and I've got the truth about what was discussed behind those closed doors. This meeting proves that WWE management is rigging storylines, protecting certain superstars while sacrificing others, and completely manipulating what we see on television to serve their own corporate agenda. If you think wrestling is just about who's the best performer or who deserves opportunities, you're wrong. It's about who has Triple H's ear, who's willing to play politics, and who's part of the inner circle that controls everything in WWE. I'm furious, the locker room is reportedly in chaos, and this revelation is going to change how you view every storyline on Raw and SmackDown moving forward. Let me paint the picture of what led to this secret meeting, because the context is crucial to understanding why Triple H felt the need to intervene personally. The Vision, Seth Rollins' faction that was supposed to dominate Raw for years, just suffered the most catastrophic betrayal in recent WWE history. Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, two of the faction's most important members, turned on Seth in brutal fashion, attacking him during what was supposed to be a celebration segment. Seth was left lying in the ring, bloodied and broken, while the Vision crumbled around him. His masterpiece, his legacy project, his attempt to create something that would outlast his in-ring career, destroyed in one night. The man who calls himself the Visionary couldn't see the betrayal coming, and that makes him look weak, incompetent, and completely out of touch with his own faction. But here's where it gets interesting, and by interesting, I mean absolutely infuriating. Instead of letting Seth deal with the consequences of his booking on his own, instead of making him figure out how to rebuild the Vision through compelling television storytelling, Triple H immediately pulled him into a private meeting. And he didn't just meet with Seth alone, he invited Roman Reigns, who's on a completely different brand, to this secret strategy session. Why would the chief content officer of WWE need to have a clandestine meeting with two of his top stars about a storyline that should be playing out naturally on television? Why does Roman Reigns, who's dealing with his own bloodline issues on SmackDown, need to be involved in Seth's Raw problems? And why did WWE try so hard to keep this meeting secret, to the point where they cleared the hallway and made sure no cameras were around? I'll tell you why. Because this meeting was about damage control. It was about protecting WWE's golden boys from looking bad after a storyline went wrong. It was about Triple H stepping in to manipulate the narrative and make sure that Seth and Roman don't suffer any long-term consequences from creative decisions that are making them look vulnerable. Let me ask you right now in the comments, do you think Triple H should be having secret meetings with Roman and Seth to protect them, or should all superstars have to deal with bad booking equally without management interference? Because this reeks of favoritism, and I need to know if I'm the only one who's absolutely disgusted by this. Now let's talk about what was actually discussed in this meeting, because I've got sources close to the situation who were willing to spill the tea about what went down behind those closed doors. According to multiple people who work in WWE's production and backstage areas, Triple H opened the meeting by acknowledging that the Vision's betrayal didn't go as planned. That's right, the betrayal that looked like it happened organically, that seemed like a shocking twist that nobody saw coming, was apparently planned by creative. But something went wrong with how it was executed, or with how the audience reacted, or with something behind the scenes that caused Triple H to feel like he needed to course-correct immediately. Seth Rollins was reportedly furious during this meeting. The Visionary was pacing back and forth, gesturing wildly, and demanding to know why he wasn't consulted about how the betrayal would be portrayed. Seth has creative input written into his contract. He's one of the few wrestlers in WWE who has significant control over his character and storylines. So for creative to book his faction's implosion without his full approval is a violation of his contractual rights and a sign of disrespect for management. Roman Reigns was apparently much calmer, sitting back and observing most of the conversation. The tribal chief has learned over the years how to navigate WWE politics, how to make his voice heard without burning bridges, how to get what he wants without coming across as difficult. Roman was there primarily to listen and to offer advice to Seth about how to handle the situation professionally while still protecting his interests. But here's what really happened that nobody is talking about. Triple H allegedly told Seth and Roman that the Vision's betrayal was a test. He wanted to see how Seth would handle adversity, how he would react to his faction falling apart, whether he could carry a revenge storyline as a babyface instead of the tweener character he's been playing. And the reason Roman was invited to the meeting? Triple H is apparently considering a Shield reunion storyline where Roman and Seth join forces to take down the wrestlers who betrayed the Vision and threatened the Bloodline. This would be WWE's way of capitalizing on nostalgia, generating mainstream attention, and creating WrestleMania-level moments without having to build new stars or take risks on unproven talent. Trivia question for the wrestling newsletter family: when was the last time Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins teamed together in a significant match, and who were their opponents? Let's see who remembers their Shield history. Here's why this secret meeting is so problematic and why it should concern every WWE fan who cares about fair booking and organic storytelling. Triple H is essentially giving Roman and Seth advance warning about where their storylines are headed. He's allowing them to have input on how their characters will be portrayed moving forward. He's giving them the opportunity to veto ideas they don't like and to push for storylines they do want. Now, on the surface, that might not seem terrible. After all, Roman and Seth are veterans who've been in WWE for over a decade. They understand their characters better than most writers on creative. They have proven track records of drawing money and creating memorable moments. Shouldn't they have some say in their own careers? Here's the problem: not everyone gets that privilege. The majority of WWE's roster doesn't get secret meetings with Triple H. They don't get advance warning about storyline changes. They don't get to veto bad ideas or push for better creative. They show up to work, they're handed a script, and they're expected to perform that script whether they like it or not. This creates a two-tiered system in WWE where the top stars, the ones who are already established and protected, get preferential treatment, while everyone else is expected to shut up and do what they're told. How is that fair? How is that meritocracy? How is that creating the best possible product when only a select few wrestlers have any real control over their characters and storylines? Young wrestlers in WWE are watching this and learning that it doesn't matter how talented you are or how hard you work. What matters is whether Triple H likes you, whether you're willing to play politics, whether you're part of the inner circle that gets those secret meetings and that creative input. Let me hear from you in the comments. Do you think WWE's top stars deserve more creative control than everyone else, or should the system be more equal with everyone having the same voice regardless of their position on the card? Now let's discuss what this secret meeting means for the bloodline specifically, because Roman Reigns being involved suggests that SmackDown's main storyline is about to intersect with Raw's drama in a major way. The bloodline has been dealing with their own internal conflicts. GUSO has been questioning Roman's leadership. Solo Sikoa has been more aggressive and less controllable. The family that claimed to be unbreakable has been showing cracks for months. If Roman is now working directly with Seth Rollins, if they're planning some kind of joint operation against their mutual enemies, what does that mean for the bloodline's identity? Is Roman abandoning his tribal chief persona and returning to his Shield roots? Is the bloodline going to merge with whatever's left of the Vision to create some super faction that dominates both brands? Or is this meeting actually about Roman and Seth competing against each other? What if Triple H is planning an angle where Roman and Seth both want to be the top star in WWE, and they're going to use their respective factions to wage war against each other? That would explain why they're both being given creative input, because Triple H needs both of them equally invested in the storyline for it to work. The possibilities are endless, but what frustrates me is that we're finding out about these plans through leaks and secret meetings instead of through compelling television storytelling that unfolds naturally. WWE is so obsessed with controlling the narrative, with making sure nothing leaks to the internet, that they're willing to have clandestine meetings and try to keep information from the very fans who support their product. Here's my controversial take that's going to make some of you furious. Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins having this secret meeting with Triple H proves that WWE doesn't trust their own creative team. Think about it. If WWE's writers and producers were capable of crafting compelling storylines that satisfied everyone involved, there would be no need for emergency meetings with the chief content officer. The fact that Triple H felt obligated to personally intervene and reassure Roman and Seth about their booking suggests that there's a disconnect between what creative is writing and what the top stars are willing to perform. It suggests that WWE's writing process is so broken, so dysfunctional, so incapable of satisfying their roster that they need management to step in constantly to smooth things over. This is not how a well-functioning wrestling company should operate. In the Territories era, in WCW's prime, in WWE's own Attitude era, wrestlers had more creative freedom, more input on their characters, and more trust from management to figure things out themselves. The current system where everything goes through multiple layers of writers and producers and executives before being approved is strangling creativity and making everything feel sanitized and corporate. Roman and Seth having a secret meeting with Triple H is a symptom of this larger problem. It's WWE admitting that their system doesn't work without constant interference from the top. And that should concern everyone who cares about the quality of WWE's product moving forward. Quick question for the comments: do you think WWE's writing process is broken, or am I being too harsh on creative? Let me know your honest opinion. Let's talk about the optics of this secret meeting, because perception matters just as much as reality in professional wrestling. When word gets out, and it always gets out, that Roman and Seth had a private audience with Triple H while other wrestlers are struggling with bad creative and getting no support, how do you think that makes the locker room feel? Wrestlers talk. They compare notes. They see who's getting protected and who's being fed to the wolves. When someone like Braun Breaker, who just betrayed the Vision and should be getting a massive push as a top heel, hears that Seth Rollins is having secret strategy meetings with the boss about how to respond to the betrayal, how does that make Braun feel? Does he wonder if management is going to undercut his heel turn to protect Seth? Does he worry that his big moment is going to be taken away from him because Seth has more political power? This creates resentment in the locker room. It creates an environment where wrestlers don't trust each other because they're constantly wondering who's playing politics behind the scenes. It creates divisions between the top stars who get preferential treatment and everyone else who's fighting for scraps. WWE loves to talk about being one big family, about everyone working together toward common goals. But secret meetings like this expose that as corporate propaganda. WWE isn't a family, it's a hierarchy where your position determines how much respect and opportunity you get from management. And before anyone says, that's just how the business works, no, it's how WWE chooses to work. Other wrestling companies have different cultures where talent is treated more equally regardless of their position on the card. WWE could change their culture if they wanted to, but they won't because the current system benefits the people in power and the established stars who want to protect their spots. Here's what nobody is asking but absolutely should be: what did Triple H promise Roman and Seth in this meeting to get them to buy into whatever storyline he's planning? Did he guarantee them main event spots at WrestleMania? Did he promise them creative control over their characters for the next year? Did he assure them that they won't be asked to do jobs or take losses that might hurt their positioning? Because that's how these meetings usually work in WWE. Management doesn't just call you in to chat about storylines, they call you in to negotiate. They want something from you, in this case, buy-in on a major angle, so they're willing to give you something in return: creative control, guaranteed positioning, whatever you want. Roman Reigns is a master at these negotiations. Over the years, he's reportedly negotiated for fewer dates, more money, creative approval over his character, and protection from booking that would make him look weak. Seth Rollins has learned similar lessons, using his veteran status and proven drawing power to leverage better creative control. But again, this is only available to WWE's top stars. Everyone else has to take what they're given and hope for the best. That's not a recipe for creating new stars or building the future of WWE. That's a recipe for keeping the same people on top forever while everyone else fights for scraps below them. Let me hear your thoughts in the comments. If you were a mid-card wrestler in WWE and you found out about this secret meeting, would you be motivated to work harder, or would you be frustrated that the system is rigged against you? Now let's discuss the timing of this meeting, because it happened remarkably quickly after the Vision's Betrayal aired on Raw. We're talking about less than 24 hours between the Betrayal segment and Triple H calling Roman and Seth into his office. That suggests one of two things: either Triple H already knew the betrayal was going to cause problems and was prepared to address it immediately, or the reaction was so negative so quickly that he felt obligated to do immediate damage control. My sources suggest it was the latter. Apparently, social media reaction to the Vision's betrayal was more negative than WWE anticipated. Fans were confused about why Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed would turn on Seth when their motivations weren't clearly established. Critics were pointing out plot holes and inconsistencies. And most importantly, Seth himself was unhappy with how the segment was produced and how his character was portrayed. So Triple H went into crisis mode. He needed to reassure Seth that this wasn't going to ruin his character long-term. He needed to get Roman involved to explore potential cross-brand storylines. And he needed to figure out how to pivot the story in a direction that would satisfy everyone involved while also creating compelling television. This is reactive booking, not proactive storytelling. WWE is responding to criticism and internal complaints instead of having a clear vision for where storylines are headed. That's why their product feels so inconsistent and why storylines often start strong but fizzle out without satisfying conclusions, because creative is constantly changing directions based on the latest feedback instead of committing to a plan and executing it properly. Here's a behind-the-scenes question for the comments: do you think WWE should stick to their original plans even when fans react negatively, or should they be flexible and change course based on feedback? There's no right answer, I just want to hear different perspectives. Let's talk about what this means for the rest of the Vision, because while Seth is having secret meetings with management, his remaining faction members are left in limbo wondering what's going to happen to them. Chad Gable, Santos Escobar, or whoever else is part of the Vision right now, they're not getting those private audiences with Triple H. They're not being consulted about where the storyline goes next. They're just waiting to see what they're told to do on next week's Raw. That's disrespectful to those performers. They're just as invested in the Vision storyline as Seth is. Their careers are affected by how this angle plays out. But they don't get a voice in the creative process because they're not at Roman and Seth's level in WWE's hierarchy. This is how you create a roster full of wrestlers who feel undervalued and unappreciated. When only the top stars get input on storylines while everyone else is treated like interchangeable parts, you're telling the majority of your roster that they don't matter, that their opinions don't count, that they should just shut up and do what they're told. And then WWE wonders why they have morale problems backstage, why wrestlers are unhappy with their positions, why people are leaving for AEW or other companies where they might get more respect and creative freedom. Here's my bold prediction about what comes out of this secret meeting, and write this down because I think I'm right. Triple H is going to book a brand warfare storyline where Raw and SmackDown go to war, with the Vision and the Bloodline forming a temporary alliance to fight off a common enemy. This will lead to Roman and Seth tagging together again, nostalgic Shield references, and eventually a main event match at a major premium live event where the two former partners collide. It's safe booking. It's predictable booking. It's the kind of nostalgia-driven storyline that WWE relies on when they don't have confidence in creating something new and original. But it'll work because fans love The Shield, because Roman and Seth are both incredible performers, and because WWE will promote it as the biggest match of the year regardless of whether it actually deserves that position. The question is whether WWE will have the courage to let this story play out over 6 months with proper build and emotional stakes, or whether they'll rush to the payoff match within a month because they're terrified of fans losing interest. Based on their track record, I'm not optimistic. Comment below with your prediction for what comes out of this secret meeting. Do you think we're getting Shield reunion, brand warfare, or something completely different? Let's address the elephant in the room. Is Triple H playing favorites with Roman and Seth because of their history together? Remember, all three of them were part of the same generation of NXT called UPS. They came up together. They conquered WWE together as The Shield. Triple H has a personal relationship with both Roman and Seth that goes beyond just boss-employee dynamics. So when Roman and Seth need help with their creative, when they're unhappy with how they're being booked, Triple H is more likely to listen and make changes than he would be for a wrestler he doesn't have that personal connection with. That's human nature, but it's also completely unfair to everyone else on the roster who doesn't have Triple H's personal phone number or access to his office whenever they want. This is nepotism in action. It's using personal relationships to gain professional advantages. And while we can understand why it happens, we should also acknowledge that it creates an uneven playing field that makes it harder for new stars to break through and for talented wrestlers to get opportunities they deserve. WWE needs to figure out a way to give more wrestlers legitimate creative input, not just the chosen few who have history with management. They need to create systems where everyone can voice concerns and pitch ideas without having to resort to secret meetings and political maneuvering. But they won't do that, because the current system benefits the people in power and the established stars who want to maintain their positions at the top of the card. Changing the system would mean giving up power and control, and nobody in WWE's leadership wants to do that. Here's my final analysis of what this secret meeting reveals about the current state of WWE, and then I want to hear your complete thoughts in the comments. This meeting proves that WWE is more concerned with protecting their top stars than with creating the best possible wrestling product. It proves that WWE's creative process is broken when the chief content officer needs to personally intervene in storylines to reassure performers. And it proves that WWE has a hierarchy where only certain wrestlers matter while everyone else is expendable. That should anger you as a fan. You should be furious that WWE is manipulating storylines behind the scenes through political meetings and favoritism instead of letting stories unfold naturally based on who's the most talented and who delivers the best performances. You should demand better from a company that has more resources, more talent, and more opportunities than any wrestling promotion in history. But here's the hard truth: most fans won't demand better because they're so invested in Roman and Seth as individual performers that they're willing to overlook the systemic problems as long as their favorites are protected and pushed. That's exactly what WWE is counting on, and that's why nothing will change unless we hold them accountable. Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins having a secret meeting with Triple H isn't just about one storyline or one angle. It's a symptom of everything wrong with how modern WWE operates. It's proof that politics and connections matter more than talent and hard work. It's evidence that WWE doesn't trust their own creative process and needs constant management interference to function. And it's a sign that unless something fundamental changes in WWE's culture, we're going to keep seeing the same problems, the same favoritism, and the same frustration from both fans and wrestlers for years to come. If you made it through this entire video, you're absolutely incredible, and I need you to do me 3 massive favors right now. First, destroy that like button if you're as angry about this secret meeting as I am and you want WWE to do better. Second, drop a comment telling me whether you think this meeting helps or hurts WWE's credibility as a sports entertainment company. I genuinely want to hear every perspective on this controversial situation. And third, subscribe to Wrestling Newsletter and smash that notification bell because I've got more inside information about what's happening backstage in WWE, and you're not going to want to miss the bombshells I'm dropping in upcoming videos. This is just the beginning of exposing how WWE really operates behind the scenes, and together we're going to demand the transparency and fairness that we deserve as fans who support this company.